Ever feel like your sense of self, your you-ness, is this big, like mysterious puzzle?
Yeah.
We'll get ready to explore some fascinating pieces of that puzzle today as we take a deep dive into the world of consciousness.
Yeah, you know what's so intriguing about consciousness?
Right.
It's that it's not just about, thinking.
Right.
It's about that whole experience of being aware, the feeling of what it's like to be alive and experiencing the world around you.
Absolutely. And to help us unpack all of this, we're going to be looking at the work of neuroscientist Antonio Damasio in his book, especially his book, The Self Comes to Mind. Now, we always hear about the cerebral cortex being like responsible for consciousness. Is that really the whole story?
Well, it's definitely a key player, but Damasio's research suggests that consciousness is way more intricate than that.
Okay.
It's not just one part of the brain calling the shots.
Right.
It's a whole team effort with different structures working together.
So instead of a solo act, it's more like a symphony orchestra with different sections contributing to the overall sound.
Precisely. Damasio breaks down consciousness into what he calls a triad: wakefulness, mind, and self.
Okay.
Each element is crucial. You need to be awake, obviously, right?
Right.
Have a working mind to process information and a sense of self to tie it all together.
Okay, I'm with you so far. But where does this intricate dance even begin?
You might be surprised to hear that it all starts with a part of the brain we don't usually associate with consciousness: the brainstem.
The brain stem. I always thought that was just for basic life support, like
Yeah.
keeping our heart beating and lungs breathing.
You're right. It handles those vital functions that we usually don't have to think about, right?
Yeah.
But Damasio's work suggests it's also playing a much bigger role behind the scenes when it comes to consciousness.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. What's so special about the brainstem?
Well, think about it. The brainstem is constantly receiving signals from your body, giving you that fundamental sense of being embodied, of having a physical presence in the world.
Okay.
This, according to Damasio, is where your sense of self begins in feeling your body exist.
So the brainstem is like the foundation of our house of consciousness,
Yeah,
grounding us in the physical reality of our bodies.
exactly. And building upon that foundation, the brainstem creates what Damasio calls primordial feelings. These are the most basic feelings of simply being alive.
Okay.
Imagine it as the feeling of your heart beating,
Hmm.
your lungs expanding, the subtle sensations of your body just existing.
So even before we have like thoughts or emotions like joy or sadness, there's this primal layer of feeling being generated by the brainstem.
Yeah,
It's like the raw material of our experience.
that's a great way to put it. It's a sense of being that precedes all the complex stuff that comes later.
Wow, that's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But how do we go from this basic awareness to, well, actually thinking and experiencing the world as we do?
That's where the next member of the triad comes in: the mind. And to understand the mind, we need to talk about another brain structure: the thalamus.
The thalamus. Okay, remind me what exactly the thalamus does.
Think of the thalamus as the brain's grand central station. It's a major hub of information processing. It receives sensory data from the outside world, sights, sounds, smells, regulates wakefulness in conjunction with the brainstem,
Right.
and most importantly, integrates information from all over the brain.
Hold on. So it's not just passing along information, it's actively shaping and combining it.
Exactly. The thalamus acts like a bridge between the basic awareness coming from the brainstem and the higher level thinking happening in the cerebral cortex, the part we often think of as the thinking brain.
So if the brainstem is the foundation, the thalamus is like the architect, carefully constructing our conscious experience.
That's a great analogy. It's weaving together the threads of sensation, bodily awareness, and neural activity to create the tapestry of our conscious experience.
This is incredible. But what about the cerebral cortex? That's where we do all the complex stuff, right? Language, imagination, problem solving, the things that seem to set us apart as humans.
Absolutely. The cortex is definitely the powerhouse when it comes to those higher cognitive functions.
Okay.
But here's where it gets really interesting. As powerful as the cortex is, it relies entirely on the brainstem and thalamus for basic consciousness.
Wait, really? Why would that be?
It's almost like an evolutionary mismatch.
Okay.
The brainstem, which is responsible for our core consciousness, has been around for millions of years, relatively unchanged, right?
Right.
But the cortex, especially in humans, has evolved rapidly and become incredibly complex.
So it's like we've got this ancient structure trying to keep up with a supercharged, rapidly evolving cortex.
Exactly. Imagine trying to run the latest, most demanding software on an old, outdated computer.
Yeah,
things could get pretty glitchy.
that makes a lot of sense. But how did scientists even figure out how important the brainstem is in all of this? It seems so subtle compared to all the activity happening in the cortex.
Well, one way we learn about the brain is by studying what happens when things go wrong.
Oh, okay.
When specific areas are damaged, we can see how consciousness is affected, giving us clues about what those areas are responsible for.
So it's like a detective story, looking for clues in these unfortunate cases of brain injury.
That's a great way to think about it. And some of these cases are truly remarkable, giving us incredible insights into the intricate workings of consciousness.
Okay, now you've got me hooked. What are some of the cases that reveal how consciousness works?
One that Damasio discusses involves patients with a damage to the hippocampus,
Okay,
a brain structure that's crucial for forming new memories.
right.
These individuals can remember things from their past, but they struggle to create new personal memories.
So they're essentially living in a perpetual present,
Yeah.
unable to weave new experiences into their life story.
Exactly. Their sense of self is deeply affected because they can't add new chapters to their personal narrative. It shows just how crucial memory is to our sense of who we are.
That's both fascinating and heartbreaking. Are there other examples?
Another well-known case is Clive Waring, a brilliant musician who suffered severe damage to his hippocampus. He can still play the piano beautifully, but his short-term memory is almost non-existent.
Oh, wow.
His wife described it as him constantly waking up for the first time with no recollection of the moments before.
Wow, that must be such a disorienting way to experience life.
It is. And it highlights how different aspects of consciousness can be selectively disrupted, giving us a glimpse into the complexity of the brain.
So by studying what's broken, we can start to understand how the healthy brain creates consciousness.
Exactly. It's like reverse engineering the brain to understand its most complex function. Another example that shows the brain's power to shape our reality is anosognosia.
Anosognosia, that sounds intense. What is it?
Imagine this. Someone is paralyzed on one side of their body, but they have absolutely no awareness of it.
Wait, they can't move half of their body but don't even realize it?
It sounds unbelievable, but it's a real condition.
Wow.
These individuals genuinely believe they can move their paralyzed limbs, even when faced with clear evidence to the contrary.
Hmm.
It's as if their brain is editing out that crucial information about their own body.
So in a way, their brain is creating a different reality for them.
It seems so. And it's not just memory that can be affected, it's our basic awareness of our physical selves. These cases really highlight how intricate and fragile consciousness truly is.
This is all so mind-blowing. But we've been talking about these large-scale brain structures. What about at the microscopic level? What's happening with individual brain cells?
To really grasp the complexity of consciousness, we need to zoom in on the neurons themselves, the tiny cells that are constantly transmitting information throughout your brain. They're the building blocks of everything we experience.
So we're going from the big picture to the micro world of the
Yeah.
brain.
Precisely. And Damasio uses this fascinating term, proto-phenomena, to describe the basic mental events that arise from the activity of small neuron circuits.
Protophenomena. So are we talking about tiny sparks of consciousness happening at the cellular level?
That's a great way to visualize it. Think about little clusters of neurons firing in specific patterns, creating these tiny bursts of mental activity. These micro-events are happening all the time, laying the groundwork for your thoughts, feelings, and perceptions. Imagine it like this. Every time you have a new thought, a tiny spark of consciousness is ignited in your brain.
Wow, so it's like all these tiny sparks are combining to create the full fireworks show of our conscious experience.
I love that analogy. Somehow, all these micro-events, these proto-phenomena, are scaled up and integrated across vast networks of neurons to create the rich, complex tapestry of your inner world.
It's amazing to think that billions of these tiny cells are working together to create our thoughts and feelings. But it raises a big question for me. Why does it feel like anything to be conscious? Why isn't just cold, emotionless computation going on in our heads?
You've hit upon one of the biggest mysteries in neuroscience, the mystery of qualia.
Qualia. Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Qualia refers to the subjective, felt quality of our experiences. Think about the feeling of biting into a ripe strawberry.
Okay.
It's not just about the taste, it's the whole experience, the sweetness, the juiciness, the feeling of it on your tongue. That's qualia.
Okay.
It's what makes your inner world so rich and vibrant.
So it's not just about perceiving something. It's about the feeling that goes along with it, the subjective experience. That makes sense. But are there different types of qualia?
Yeah, there are.
It feels like we're wading into some deep philosophical waters here.
We are. Damasio distinguishes between two types of qualia. Qualia 1 is the feeling component that's always present in your conscious experience. It's the subtle emotional undercurrent that colors your perceptions, even when you're not consciously aware of any strong
So
emotions.
you're saying that even when I'm not actively feeling happy or sad, there's still this background hum of feeling that's part of my awareness.
Exactly. It's like the background music that accompanies your thoughts. But then there's qualia 2, and this is where things get really interesting.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's Qualia 2 all about?
Qualia 2 is the deeper question of why brain activity feels like anything at all. Why doesn't our brain just process information in a cold, computational way without any accompanying feeling?
It's like we can see neurons firing and map brain activity, but that doesn't explain why it feels like something to be us.
Yeah,
It's like there's this magical element to it.
you've put it perfectly. It's a question that's puzzled philosophers and scientists for centuries.
Right.
How do we go from objective brain activity to subjective felt experience?
So are there any clues, any theories that even attempt to address this mind-blowing question?
Well, Damasio suggests that feelings are so fundamental to our existence because they are essential for survival. Emotions aren't just these fluffy add-ons, they're deeply rooted in our biology. They guide our choices and actions, helping us navigate the world effectively.
So fear alerts us to danger. Disgust helps us avoid things that might harm us. Joy motivates us to seek out things that are good for us. It's like our emotions are constantly nudging us in the right direction.
Exactly. Without feelings, we would be like robots, just processing information but lacking the drive to do anything with it. We wouldn't have that emotional compass to guide us towards well-being.
It makes me think about how we often try to separate logic and emotion, but they're actually so intertwined. Our feelings play a huge role in how we make decisions and interact with the world.
Absolutely. And Damasio goes a step further, proposing that feelings might be the very foundation of consciousness itself.
Wow. So feelings are not just important for survival, they might be the key to understanding consciousness as a whole.
It's a bold idea. He proposes that even simple organisms, those without complex brains, might experience a primitive form of consciousness based on their basic bodily feelings.
So even a single-celled organism might have some rudimentary sense of awareness based on how its internal state is feeling. That's pretty wild.
It is a radical idea. He's suggesting that consciousness might be more of a spectrum than an on-off switch.
Hmm,
Different levels of complexity depending on the organism's structure, from the basic feelings of a single cell to the rich inner world of a human being.
that's incredible. It makes you wonder if there's a lot more consciousness out there in the world than we realize.
It certainly does, and it raises some profound questions about the nature of life and our place in the universe.
This is all so much to take in. But I'm curious about how our feelings are shaped, not just by the world around us, but also by our own bodies.
That's a great point. To understand that, we need to talk about interoception.
Interoception, that sounds like a mouthful. What is that?
It's basically your brain's internal radar constantly scanning the state of your body, your heart rate, breathing, even subtle muscle tension.
Hmm.
All of that information is being sent back to your brain.
So our brains aren't just reacting to the world. They're also reacting to what's happening inside of us. It's like having an internal conversation.
Exactly. Your brain is constantly integrating that internal information with everything else it's processing. And it seems that this awareness of our internal state, this interoception, is the foundation for those basic gut-level feelings we were talking about earlier.
Ah, those primordial feelings from the brainstem.
Precisely. Your brain is creating this symphony of feelings based on input from both the world and your own body.
So it's this constant feedback loop between our internal state and the external world, both contributing to how we feel.
Mm.
But how do those basic feelings develop into the complex emotions we experience every day?
That's where learning and association come in. Your brain learns to connect certain bodily states with specific situations, adding layers of meaning to those basic feelings.
Okay, can you give me an example?
Imagine you're walking through a dark forest and you hear a sudden rustling in the bushes.
Okay, you're already making me feel uneasy.
Your heart starts to race, your muscles tense up, you might even hold your breath. That's your brain triggering the fight or flight response, your body's built-in alarm system.
Yeah, it's like our primal instinct kicking in, telling us to be on high alert.
Right, but it's not just the sound itself that's triggering that fear response.
Okay.
It's your brain's interpretation of that sound based on your environment and past experiences.
So that same rustling sound in my own backyard at home might not trigger the same reaction.
Exactly. The brain is incredibly adaptable. It learns to associate those bodily states with different situations, creating a nuanced emotional response.
So we have these primordial feelings arising from our internal state, and then our brains build upon those using context and experience to create the more complex emotions we feel every day.
That's it. It's a fascinating process, and it leads to a question that really stretches our understanding of consciousness.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. What's the question?
Could it be possible that even very simple organisms without complex brains experience some form of rudimentary feeling?
You're talking about single-celled organisms like amoebas?
Exactly. I know it seems like a big leap, but research is emerging suggesting that even single cells might have a basic awareness.
Hmm.
Not consciousness as we know it, but a kind of sensitivity to their internal state and their environment.
So even at that basic level of life, there might be something that resembles a feeling. It challenges our whole idea of what it means to have feelings.
It does. We tend to think of feelings as these complex human things, but maybe there's this whole spectrum of feeling out there in nature with varying levels of complexity.
That's a really interesting perspective.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if the emotions we experience as humans might have some deep evolutionary connection to the way even a single-celled organism responds to its world.
It's a humbling thought for sure, and it speaks to the interconnectedness of all living things. But let's shift our focus for a moment to two specific feelings that seem to have a powerful influence on how we behave: pain and pleasure.
Pain and pleasure. It's like they're two sides of the same coin, these fundamental motivators that steer us towards what's good for us and away from what might cause harm.
Exactly. From an evolutionary perspective, it makes perfect sense.
Right.
Even simple organisms need a way to know what to approach and what to avoid in order to survive, right?
Yeah.
Imagine a single-celled organism encountering something harmful in its environment. It needs a way to register that as bad so it can move away. That's where pain comes in.
And on the other side, pleasure encourages organisms to seek out things that are essential for survival: food, water, shelter. It's all about staying alive and thriving.
Precisely. Even before complex brains evolved, there was this system for experiencing good and bad, helping organisms navigate their surroundings and survive. And over millions of years, specific neural pathways and brain regions evolved to become specialized for processing these feelings of pain and pleasure.
So these basic feelings are hardwired into our biology, shaping our behavior from the very beginning.
It seems so, and we now know that specific chemicals play a role in these feelings. For example, endorphins, those feel-good chemicals, help modulate feelings of pleasure, while a substance called substance P is involved in transmitting pain signals.
Wow, it's amazing to think that these tiny molecules can have such a powerful impact on how we feel and behave. But pain and pleasure are just two of the many ways we experience the world. Our brains are constantly taking in this massive stream of sensory information: sights, sounds, smells, tastes, touch. How does it all come together into one coherent experience?
That's a great question. And what's fascinating is that it's not just the raw sensory data that shapes your experience, it's also how your body interacts with those senses. You don't just passively receive information, you actively engage with it.
Okay, so it's not just what we're sensing, but how our body's responding to those sensations. It's like our bodies are part of the experience, not just passive receivers.
You're getting it. And this brings us to another really interesting aspect of how our brains create feelings: back projections.
Back projections. Remind me what those are again.
Remember how we talked about your brain not just receiving information, but also sending instructions back out to your body? It's a two-way communication highway. These back projections play a key role in shaping how you feel.
Okay, so it's like a feedback loop between the brain and the body.
Exactly. They're constantly refining and modulating your responses to the world, shaping your emotional experience in subtle but powerful ways.
That makes sense. But how do these back projections actually work to influence our feelings? Can you give me an example?
Let's go back to that dark forest scenario. You hear the rustling, your brain thinks it's a threat and sends signals to your body to prepare for fight or flight. But then you see it was just a squirrel. What happens next?
I guess my brain would realize there's no danger and I'd start to calm down, but it wouldn't be an instant switch, right?
Right.
My heart would still be racing. I'd still be feeling that adrenaline surge.
Exactly. And that's where back projections come in. Your brain sends signals through those pathways to slow your heart rate down, relax your muscles, and bring your breathing back to normal. It's during that process of returning to a calm state that you experience the feeling of relief.
So the feeling of relief isn't just the absence of fear. It's my body actively regulating itself back to a baseline thanks to those back projections.
Precisely. This back and forth between your brain and body is happening all the time, often beneath the surface of your awareness. It's this intricate dance between your internal and external worlds that shapes how you feel.
This is all so eye-opening. But there's one big question we haven't addressed yet. How does all of this connect to our sense of self? That feeling of I that we all experience.
Ah, the million-dollar question. And honestly, it's something that scientists are still trying to fully understand. What we do know is that the self isn't this separate entity just floating around in your head.
Right.
It emerges from the constant flow of experiences, sensations, emotions, and feelings that make up your conscious existence.
So our sense of self isn't a thing, it's more as a process.
Exactly. It's woven into the very fabric of your conscious experience. And remember how we talked about qualia, that mysterious what it's like to experience something? Well, it seems that raw, subjective feeling of being might be the very foundation on which your sense of self is built.
So each qualia, each feeling, is like a brushstroke on the canvas of who we are.
I love that metaphor. And as you gather more experiences, your brain weaves those qualia moments into a narrative. You start to create stories about yourself, about who you are and where you fit in the world.
So our sense of self is kind of like this ongoing story constantly being written and revised.
That's a great way to think about it. It's a dynamic process shaped by your interactions, the feelings you experience, even the memories you choose to hold on to. And it's this incredibly intricate interplay between your brain, body, and the world that ultimately makes you who you are.
This is blowing my mind. It sounds like we're not just these fixed entities, we're constantly evolving and becoming. But there's one piece of the puzzle we haven't talked about yet. Consciousness itself.
Right.
How does that fit into all of this?
Ah, consciousness, the biggest mystery of them all. That's exactly what we'll be exploring next. We've spent this deep dive talking about how your senses gather information, how you experience emotions, all these different feelings you have. But what's really fascinating is that extra layer of awareness, that you're actually the one experiencing it all.
It's like we've laid out all the ingredients, but we haven't quite figured out how they combine to bake that consciousness cake, right?
You got it. Even with all our brain imaging and research, it's surprisingly difficult to pinpoint what consciousness is or how it arises.
It really does feel like this big unsolved mystery.
It definitely does, and it's been a head-scratcher for centuries. But even though we don't have all the answers, science is starting to uncover some pretty cool insights.
Okay, tell me more. What are some of the theories scientists are exploring about how consciousness works?
Well, one idea that I find particularly interesting is that consciousness acts like a spotlight, shining a light on certain parts of your experience while leaving others in the dark.
So you're saying that out of all the information our brains are processing at any given moment, consciousness helps us focus on specific things. It's like selective attention.
Exactly. Your conscious mind is choosing what to focus on, what to bring to the forefront of your awareness.
And what's really interesting is that this ability to choose where we direct our attention seems to play a role in shaping our sense of self, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Think about it. The experiences you consciously pay attention to, the feelings you dwell on, the thoughts you keep coming back to, all of those things become woven into your self-narrative, the story you tell yourself about who you are.
It's like our consciousness is the curator of our internal museum, choosing which pieces to display and which stories to tell about our lives.
I love that analogy. It really captures the essence of how our consciousness shapes our understanding of ourselves. And it makes me think about mindfulness, where the goal is to pay attention to the present moment without judgment. Is mindfulness essentially a way of training our spotlight learning to direct it more intentionally?
That's a great question. I think you're onto something. Mindfulness is all about cultivating awareness, noticing your thoughts and feelings without getting carried away by them. And by practicing this intentional attention, we can get to know our own minds better, which often leads to a deeper sense of self-awareness.
So in a way, practicing mindfulness could be seen as a form of self-creation. We're not just passive recipients of experience. We can actively shape ourselves by choosing where we focus our attention.
That's a powerful idea, but it brings us back to this core question about consciousness. If it's like a spotlight, what's controlling the spotlight? What's doing the choosing?
That's the heart of the mystery, and there's no easy answer. Some theories propose that consciousness emerges from the interactions of many different brain regions working together. It's not like there's one specific consciousness center in the brain. It's more like a property of the whole system working in harmony.
So instead of the brain having consciousness, it's more that the brain does consciousness.
Exactly. It's this dynamic, ongoing process, this constant flow of information and integration that gives rise to your subjective experience.
This is making my head spin. But in a good way, so much of what we've talked about today really highlights this incredible interconnectedness between our brain, our body, and the world around us.
It is remarkable, isn't it? You're not just an isolated individual, you're in constant conversation with your environment, both internally and externally.
And it's this intricate dance between sensation, emotion awareness, and our physical body that creates this unique tapestry of your conscious experience.
I couldn't have said it better myself. It really makes you appreciate the complexity and wonder of what it means to be human.
It does. But if consciousness is this dynamic process, this constant flow, does that mean our sense of self is also constantly changing? Do we ever truly have a stable sense of who we are?
That's a fascinating question, and it leads us to another interesting aspect of Damasio's work. The idea that the self is not a fixed entity, but rather something that is constantly being constructed.
So you're saying we're not just born with a sense of self, it develops over time.
Exactly. Damasio believes that your sense of self emerges gradually as you interact with the world and build a sense of your own body in relation to everything around you.
So our earliest experiences play a big part in shaping our sense of self.
They really do think about babies. They
Wow.
spend so much time exploring their bodies, putting things in their mouth, feeling different textures. All of these experiences are helping them create a map of their physical selves and how they fit into the world.
It's like they're laying the foundation for their sense of self through these early sensory and motor experiences.
That's exactly right. And as we get older, these physical interactions with the world start to intertwine with our social interactions. We begin to see ourselves reflected in the eyes of other people, and that further shapes our understanding of who we are.
So our sense of self isn't just about our own internal experience. It's also influenced by how others see us and how we relate to them.
Absolutely. It's this ongoing dialogue between your inner world and the world around you that continues to shape your sense of self throughout your life.
It's amazing to think that our relationships and the people we connect with play such an important role in who we are at our core.
It really underscores the importance of human connection for developing a strong sense of self, doesn't it?
It does. But if our sense of self is always being shaped by our experiences, does that mean it's always changing? Is there ever a point where we have a solid, unchanging sense of who we are?
That's a great question. And while your sense of self is undoubtedly dynamic and evolving, there does seem to be a core sense of identity that persists over time.
So it's kind of like a river,
Yeah,
constantly flowing, but you still recognize it as the same river.
that's a perfect analogy. There's this sense of continuity to your sense of self, even as it's constantly being informed and reshaped by new experiences.
It's like we're both changing and staying the same all at the same time. It's a bit of a paradox.
That's the beauty of being human, isn't it? We're these complex, ever-evolving beings. But speaking of change and continuity, let's talk about the role of memory. Earlier, we touched on how crucial memory is for our sense of personal identity. But how exactly does that work? How do our memories contribute to who we feel we are?
It's a great question. It seems like our memories are like building blocks for that self-narrative we were talking about.
You're exactly right. Memory is absolutely essential for building your sense of self. It's like the archive of your experiences, the library of all the stories that make up who you are.
So each memory, from a vivid childhood experience to something as simple as what you had for breakfast this morning, becomes part of that larger tapestry of your personal history.
Exactly. Every memory you have, big or small, contributes to your unique story.
But it's not just about remembering the facts and details of events, is it? It also seems like the emotions and feelings tied to those memories play a big part.
You hit the nail on the head. Your memories aren't just cold, hard facts. They're infused with emotion. The way you feel about a particular memory shapes how it fits into your overall story.
So a happy memory might contribute to a sense of joy and fulfillment, while a sad or painful memory might bring up feelings of regret or sadness. It's like each memory adds a different shade of color to the overall picture of who we are.
Exactly. And it's the way you weave all of these emotionally charged memories together that creates the richness and depth of your personal narrative.
But we have to acknowledge that our memories aren't always perfectly accurate, right? I think we've all had those moments where we realize our memory of something might not match up with what actually happened.
That's absolutely true. Memory isn't a perfect recording device. It's much more of a reconstructive process. Every time you recall a memory, you're essentially recreating it in your mind. And that process can be influenced by all sorts of things, from your current mood to how you've talked about the memory in the past.
So the way we remember something might not always reflect what truly happened.
Right. Our memories are often colored by our current perspectives and how we're feeling at the moment. It's like we're constantly editing and revising the story of our lives, adding new layers of meaning as we go.
But even if our memories aren't always perfectly accurate, they still play a vital role in shaping who we are.
Absolutely. Even the flawed and imperfect ones, they give your personal narrative a sense of continuity and coherence, helping you understand who you are in relation to your past.
It's like our memories are the threads that connect all the different parts of our lives.
I love that. A beautiful way to think about it. It really highlights just how powerful memory is in shaping your sense of self.
This has been such an incredible exploration. We've covered so much, from those basic building blocks of feeling to how our brain, body, and experiences all come together to shape our sense of self.
It's been quite a journey, and we've really only scratched the surface of this vast and fascinating topic.
I know there's still so much to learn and explore about consciousness and the self. But for me, the biggest takeaway is that our sense of self isn't something fixed or predetermined. It's something that emerges and evolves over time,
Mhm.
shaped by this incredible interplay between our biology, our experiences, and our conscious awareness.
And that awareness itself is such a remarkable gift, isn't it? It allows you to experience the world and then reflect on those experiences and shape your own unique story.
It's like we're both the authors and the characters of our own lives.
Beautifully said. I think that's a perfect place to pause and let everything sink in for a bit. We've explored a lot today, and I'm sure you have plenty to ponder.
I agree. We've gone deep into the foundations of feeling, explored the intricate connection between the brain and body, and uncovered the dynamic nature of the self.
Hmm.
But there's one final question I can't resist asking before we wrap up part two.
Go for it.
If consciousness is this emergent property, this incredible interplay of so many factors, is it possible to create artificial consciousness? Could we build a machine that truly experiences the world in the same way we do? That's a question that keeps coming up more and more, as technology advances.
It really does feel like we're living in this exciting time when science fiction is blurring with reality.
It does.
Yeah, it's definitely a mind-bending time to be alive. We're pushing the boundaries of technology in ways that were unimaginable just a few decades ago.
And as we delve deeper into these technologies, we're forced to ask some pretty profound questions about what it means to be human, what it
And
means to be conscious.
exactly. If we can create machines that think and learn, could we also create machines that feel and experience the world in the same way we do? It's a question that philosophers and scientists have been grappling with for centuries, and it's becoming more and more relevant as AI technology advances.
And it raises all sort of ethical considerations too, right? Like, if we were to create a machine that's truly conscious, wouldn't we have a responsibility to treat it with the same respect and dignity we afford to any other sentient being?
That's a huge ethical dilemma that we'll need to face as a society if AI continues to evolve in this direction. It really makes you think about what it means to be conscious, what it means to be alive, and where we draw the line between humans and machines.
Right, right. It's a fascinating and challenging discussion, and one that we'll definitely need to continue having as AI technology develops. But for now, let's shift gears a bit and pull our focus back to the human experience of consciousness.
Sounds good. Where would you like to go from here?
Well, we've talked a lot about the brain and the intricate interplay between our internal and external worlds. But one thing that's really struck me throughout this deep dive is the idea that we're not just like passive observers of our experience.
Yeah.
We actively participate in shaping our reality.
That's such a crucial point. You're not just a passenger on this journey of life, you're the driver.
Right.
You're constantly making choices, directing your attention, and engaging with the world in ways that shape your unique experience.
It's like we're all artists, constantly creating our own masterpiece from the raw materials of our senses, emotions, and thoughts.
I love that analogy. It really captures the sense of agency we have in shaping our own reality. And it makes me think about the power of our attention. Where we choose to focus our minds has a profound impact on how we experience the world.
Right, exactly. If you're constantly dwelling on negative thoughts and worries, you're more likely to perceive the world as a, like, threatening or stressful place, right?
Hmm.
But if you cultivate a mindset of gratitude and focus on the positive aspects of your life, the world can seem like a much brighter and more joyful place.
That's so true. And there's a growing body of scientific evidence to support this idea. Studies have shown that practicing mindfulness and meditation, which cultivate our ability to pay attention in a more focused and intentional way, can have significant benefits for our mental and emotional well-being.
So by training our attention, by becoming more mindful of where our minds are wandering, we can actually change the way we experience the world.
Absolutely. Mindfulness practices help you develop the ability to observe your thoughts and feelings without judgment, which gives you more freedom to choose how you respond to them. Instead of getting swept away by negative thoughts or reactive emotions, you can learn to pause, take a breath, and respond in a more skillful and intentional way.
That's incredible. It suggests that we have a lot more control over our inner world than we might realize.
Exactly. You're not a prisoner of your thoughts and feelings. You have the power to choose how you relate to them. And this power extends to your physical body as well. Remember, we talked about interoception, that awareness of your internal state.
Yeah.
Well, research has shown that you can actually learn to influence your bodily sensations through practices like deep breathing, yoga, and biofeedback.
So it's like a two-way street. Our minds can influence our bodies, and our bodies can influence our minds.
That's exactly right. It all goes back to that intricate feedback loop we've been discussing. By becoming more aware of your bodily sensations and learning techniques to regulate them, you can have a positive impact on your mental and emotional state. It's like having a direct line of communication between your mind and body.
This is all so empowering. It suggests that we're not just at the mercy of our biology or our circumstances. We have the power to actively shape our experience, both internally and externally.
I couldn't agree more. It's a message that I think everyone needs to hear. You have more agency and control over your life than you might realize. By making conscious choices about where you focus your attention, how you relate to your thoughts and feelings, and how you care for your body, you can create a more fulfilling and meaningful experience of life.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into consciousness, what's like one key takeaway you hope our listeners will carry with them?
For me, it's the understanding that consciousness is not some distant, abstract concept. It's something you experience every single moment of every day. It's the feeling of the sun on your skin, the sound of laughter, the taste of your favorite food. It's the awareness of being alive and present in this incredible world. And the most amazing thing is that you have the power to shape that experience.
I love that. It's a reminder that even though we've explored some complex ideas today, consciousness is ultimately about how we live our lives, how we relate to ourselves and the world around us.
Exactly. By paying attention to your thoughts, your feelings, your bodily sensations, and the choices you make each day, you can deepen your understanding of what it means to be conscious.
Yeah, and in doing so, you might unlock new possibilities for healing, growth, and transformation.
I have no doubt about it.
So, to everyone listening, we encourage you to keep exploring the wonders of your own consciousness. Pay attention to the world around you, notice the subtle nuances of your experience, and embrace the mystery and beauty of being alive.
And never stop asking questions. The more we learn about consciousness, the more we realize how much there still is to discover.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. The journey of understanding ourselves and the universe is an ongoing adventure.
And it's an adventure we're all on together.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into consciousness. We hope you've enjoyed exploring the inner workings of your own mind.
It's been a pleasure sharing these ideas with you.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep wondering, and keep feeling your way through life.